Hello everyone, my name is Ursula Rabar. I work on the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust, and today I'm going to give you a quick overview of the current project update. But before we do that, let's just talk for a second on the challenge we are trying to address in this effort. So the challenge we are working with is the open book usage data. And by what I mean by this is something that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So as we know, there are multiple platforms through or a website that create usage data when it comes to open access books, because as we know, when an open access book is published, it will have multiple discoverable versions. So the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust is directly addressing the challenge by creating a way to have access to this data in an aggregated, community-governed, equitable, and trusted way. So what we did was also researched a bit more in depth the supply chain for open access books to understand better which stakeholders are involved, as well as how does, if at all, this data travel between them. You can read this report in full, if you like, on our Zenodo community, where you can read how this has been done and what came out of it. But something that surfaced and that led us to the next step was the different use cases for the different stakeholders. So we know that publishers, libraries, and their services all aggregate this data thanks to the research we have done. And we also know that there is a lot of manual work and resources put into the collection of this data and aggregation of the data because there is no standardized or aggregated way to do it. So we took on this challenge and developed projects that are trying to address it and provide a tool or a service that would help stakeholders in this environment. Again, you can read this particular report as well as all of our other reports on our Zenodo community. So the first thing we did was the research that I just shown you in order to get where we are. But this is not all the research we have done. The effort started in 2015, where there was an initial research for understanding this challenge, workshops or similar, and that led to a second wave of research through the supply chain, the use cases, as well as establishing a mission and vision and the board formation for the effort. And this led to the project that we are currently in, which is focusing on advancing all of this to launch the model that I will talk about in a moment. And we are currently in this third project. So one of the things that we established and that we worked through in the last few years was creating a community governance, because the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust is a community-led initiative. So by that, I mean we have community members as part of our board of trustees, and you can see the 2025 board on the screen. And this is also supported by board committees that are also composed of community members, as well as staff that supports all of this work. We also had a vision established on community governance sharing of quality interoperable open access book usage data, which talks to the mission to champion strategies for the improved publication and management of open access books. We also work to establish our core operating principles that you can see on this screen, that you can read about if you're interested in more detail on our website. We had many different individuals helping us in the role of trustees, partners, and advisors through the last 5 years and beyond. And this is not an exhaustive list. There are many more community members that joined our community consultations or surveys, etc. And we're very grateful for the community that on a global level has helped us reach where we are at the moment. Speaking of which, I'm going to give you the brief overview of an update of where we are at this point of time. So in order to establish the way to have access to this aggregated usage data, we have chosen a model and are currently piloting it. So the model that has been chosen is the data space model. This is a model developed in Europe and heavily supported by the European Commission, and that has as a model already been used in other industries. So it works on a principle of having data providers that share data with data consumers or data recipients, as we call them in our situation, through a framework that has standards and protocols established and that enables the control exchange of sensitive web analytics about scholarship output use. It works on the principle of as open as possible, but as uncontrolled as necessary, because we know that in order to exchange data between public and private organizations, there will be sensitive data that cannot be fully open. And the data space framework has been used with other similar types of data in other industries. To give you examples, there is a commonly referenced data space in the automobile industry called Catena X. Then there are other data spaces in the health and accounting environment that work on a very similar basis. So this is not a database, it's not harvesting a model, and it's not an archive. It works with active participation through the exchange of data between data providers and data consumers that have contracts in place on how they wish to exchange this data in the sense of which data is exchanged and how it can be used. So as I said, this model replaces the harvesting aspect. It helps access data feeds via API. It facilitates the multi-party data access, computation, governance, and license use auditing. It improves data discovery quality and interoperability. And one thing that data space needs in order to function is the so-called rulebook, which is a document that contains different sections providing an overview, terms and conditions, the support that's given by the coordination office, and one section focused on the technical aspect. And this is also something that has been adopted from the International Data Space Association, and that we made sure it works for the scholarly communication data space we are building through community consultations, working groups, etc., that help us develop it over a 15 months time span. And you can read the full document in its version 0.0 on our Zenodo community. So in order to have the pilot and test this connection, we had this document developed that created the foundation for the terms and conditions. And we are currently in the pilot mode with 6 organizations that you can see on the screen that are connecting and routing scholarship usage data feeds via the first scholarly communication data space. So this is the testing phase, and it works with a minimal viable product that is focusing on counter-compliant book and chapter item metrics. So we purposely chose to start small and to have a standard that many organizations use to make it easier, because the point of this pilot is to, first of all, understand the return on investment, the technical build that organizations need to do, and what else is needed or missing so that we can improve it and expand it further. And the expected outputs are technical diagrams, sandbox or production environments, inventory, documentation on any type of sorts that comes out of a proof of concept. And you can actually see some of these outputs already in our GitHub repository that's freely available. What we want to do next, pending funding, is launch the proof of concept and further develop it, as well as explore the extensibility to other sensitive scholarly communication data. So understand what other types of data would the community like to exchange. So in terms of moving forward, we also worked on a sustainability model, because while this is a not-for-profit effort, we do still need to have ways to support it, also because we cannot rely on grants forever. So we did some community consultation to understand which other cost recovery mechanisms would work. And what we heard is that membership fees, grants, and API demand fees are the most appropriate. So given the grants are already part of our model, and that API demand use fees we cannot yet implement because we are not yet there, we focused on exploring the membership fees with the community further. So through various consultations, we came up with this draft model that has two aspects. One is the supporters, which are organizations that want to financially support us, but don't necessarily want to exchange data. And then the other is the organizational members who actually want to, of course, exchange the data. And we started an early pilot for the supporters at the end of last year, and I still open to hear from organizations that do wish to support us, because this is helping us streamline onboarding and speed technical development as well. So if any of the present want to or contact me, they can, to explore this further. But one thing I want to mention, especially about where we are at the moment in terms of sustainability, is that membership only marginally cover infrastructure operations at least until we have a critical mass of organizations. So we are currently looking at the end of the final project, which ends this year, and how we can sustain and fund the gap to close this aspect and sustain staff, technology, administration to actually launch what we are developing in the pilot. So if any organizations are interested in collaborating with us, in helping us get to the next phase and breach this gap, they're more than welcome to contact us with ideas, with collaboration, suggestion, etc. And I'm closing this presentation with actually how you can do that. So you can contact me on the email address you see on the screen. If you have anything you wish to ask or discuss or suggest, you can subscribe to our announcement list if you just want to be updated on the event's progress, on the project's progress. And you can follow our events on our website, as well as read all of our outputs on Zenodo, because we publish everything in full transparency. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.